Hey to any instructors who might be watching this video or looking at this template on Canvas. I just wanted to leave you a note here that I'm going to be recording this video as if I am an instructor teaching a hybrid flex class, or hybrid flexibility, HyFlex, what have you, and not an online only class. I just wanted to sort of give an example of a specific one for the HyFlex class, because the week 1 introduction I did in last week's template was more geared towards just an online only or a class that is sort of unknown at this point. But I specifically wanted to do the HyFlex one because that's probably something that's a little newer to us than just the idea of teaching fully online. So what does that mean in terms of the differences between the two templates? I want to make sure I touch on that before I record this video. As you can see here, this is the online-only introduction for week 2. When I switch over to the HyFlex and when I do the video, you'll notice some slight differences. Mainly, things like reading responses are due on Friday in my online-only class. That's because there is no class discussion. There is no real need for my students to have the work finished by a certain day during the week, unless I'm, say, posting a discussion that I want to be done by Wednesday at midnight, which in this version of this class, I have not designed it in that way. You'll also notice that there is something called a homework assignment on online only. I know, revolutionary. When we switch over to HyFlex, that will be designated as a workshop. And as with both classes, my discussions are always due on Sundays. So let's switch over and just take a look at what that looks like, and then I'm going to start recording the video as if I were talking to my students. Okay, let's switch over. So yeah, as you can see, this is the HyFlex variant of the class. I have listed that their reading response should be due by their cohort meeting. That is to make it so that I know that my students have read before class or have at least attempted to do some thinking before class. This makes it harder on your students who might be meeting on a Monday. This is something that I'm sort of going to have to feel out with my students when I get there. Do my students on Monday feel like they're getting more work than my students on Friday? I don't know. That'll be a conversation to have. You'll also notice that this particular workshop, I'm giving them a 48-hour window to finish the project because it's a little more intensive, and this workshop is going to be run more like a discussion in class, your traditional discussion, than sitting down and writing out an assignment. So it's sort of an extension of the in-class cohort meeting that they'll then have 2 days to flesh out a little further. Again, watching a documentary, that is the same. I would like it done before Thursday, just so I sort of have an idea at the midway point of the week what movie they're watching. And then, as always, the discussion is due on Sunday. So those are the differences here. Just one more time, showing you the slight differentiation between an online-only class, where I will never see them in a face-to-face environment, versus a hybrid flex class where I will be seeing them at certain points during the week. So deadlines and timelines are going to matter more in one class than the other. Recording video 2 for Introductions to a HyFlex course for week 2 of a rhetorical analysis unit. Hey students, welcome back to week 2 of our rhetorical analysis adventures. We're going to be taking a look at our assignments that are due this week. When you see this page, it will include my week 2 intro, so you're sort of getting a behind-the-scenes look at what happens when I make this class. But to start, as always, there are a few things we want to talk about with our class this week. So we can start with our reading response for week 2. Ignore that last thing you saw. So reading response for week 2, you're going to take the texts that we are reading for class this week, which are When the First Voice You Hear Is Not Your Own by Royster, or How to Tame a Wild Tongue by Ansel Dua. Note that is or, not and. I highly recommend you read both of these texts, but you're only required to read one. And you're going to be looking at some important quotes from those texts, things that you find meaningful, things that you find are important to understand the text, sort of quotes that you would find from your chosen text that you want to talk about with the class. Secondly, I want you to try to identify a moment where the author is using some sort of rhetorical appeal that you are familiar with, mainly ethos, pathos, or logos, but I'm a little flexible with that this week, we'll say. I want you to sort of think about what the reason for that choice might be. Why do you think this author chose to persuade you with an emotional appeal rather than to cite an important author in the field? Why do you think they chose to show you a logical progression of argument, or a statistic, or a fact, rather than to tell you a personal story about their lives, or vice versa? This is basically practice for a rhetorical analysis, but also it is to get you thinking about the main themes of these texts that are sort of riddled throughout our rhetorical analysis unit and throughout our class as a whole, of social justice, of linguistic justice, of sort of the world we live in today. Yes, see these as practice, and we will be doing more of that practice in our cohort meeting this week when we take place in Workshop 2. We're going to be watching a video from a Thai life insurance agency. It is a fantastic little advertisement that I think does a really great job at utilizing the rhetorical appeals. One in particular, but all of them are there, I promise. In class, we will be answering a lot of these questions, but I would like you to, in sort of a more traditional post, try to answer these questions as well. What is the argument or arguments being discussed in the ad? What appeals are used throughout the ad? And how persuasive do you find the ad? You'll note, if you read everything, which you always should, I'm giving you a little bit of a buffer to get this actual submitted graded assignment in. This will be something we discuss in class, so there will be sort of like participation, discussion points awarded, but then there will also be these assignment points awarded on Canvas. The reason I'm giving you an extra 48 hours is because it might take you some time to do some of this work. But you'll notice it is the beginning of the week, and this video is already up. So if you know that the 2 days after your cohort meeting with me are a little rough in terms of either projects done, other homework for other class, work, babysitting duties, anything, you can start working on this whenever you see this assignment come up. Just know that it is due 48 hours after the date and time we meet as a cohort. That'll be different for every one of you, but you should, by this point, probably know that time. If you are questionable about when your project is due or when you can finish this assignment within 48 hours of the deadline, just reach out to me, as always, email, whatever else. Finally, as always, we have our discussion thread for the week. This is a bit more of a hefty one in terms of the text you see on the page, but not so much the text that you're required to do. As we've been talking about in class, this unit was designed with Ava DuVernay's 13th in mind, but I wanted to provide some other options in terms of texts that may not be as triggering with the current moment, or that may not force people to relive certain traumas in their lives. So I've tried to provide a wide variety of texts that sort of do social justice work, or that talk about important moments in, I would say, recent history, that you can sort of pick and choose from. I've provided you with a few content warnings here. As with all content warnings, I may have missed something. If I have, I apologize, firstly, and secondly, please feel free to let me know, and I will add it to the list immediately and message the class to let them know there might be something else that could be potentially triggering in our work for class. But yes, with this, as always, we are just having a conversation about whatever text we watched for the week on our discussion post. And again, this doesn't have to be fancy schmancy essay length writing or language. Just talk to me talk to your peers, let us know what you thought about your text. We're going to be moving next week into sort of drafting for our rhetorical analysis, so you might notice that this entire week is sort of practice and repeating the type of work that I'm going to be asking you to do for rhetorical analysis. So dedicate some time to this week to really think about, sorry if I hit my mic there, to really think about the ways that authors construct arguments utilizing specific argumentative tools. This is your practice week. This is the time where you get to sort of dig in with lower stakes than with an essay. So really value this week. Okay? Thanks all. Sorry for a little bit of a longer video. It's about 7 minutes instead of 5 this week. But I'll stop talking so it doesn't get too much longer. Bye all.